Okay.
Good morning, Deborah. It's not morning. What time is it there
Over
now?
there.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to Los Angeles yet again.
Well,
great.
Can you tell us what's been happening today on the red carpet?
It's been so exciting because yesterday everything was being built. We were seeing barriers put up. We were seeing statues being taken in. But today the press were allowed on. Now that's quite a feat because the security operation here is absolutely immense. So even though the press were allowed on the red carpet today, it's still being built in places. They're still putting cameras in. They're putting lights in. So it's like a non-stop massive circus. So the public can see in a little bit from the sidewalk. But inside those barriers, you're getting press from all over the world reporting. And of course, you've seen our Rise teams on the red carpet reporting live, which is so incredibly exciting to be able to give people an insight, a peek into what it's like. But once you get inside those barriers, the first thing you need is accreditation. So everybody has to go through the same process of getting that very precious accreditation. And that's like gold dust because very few people can get that. So, our Rise teams have been very privileged to be able to get on that red carpet. And of course, that red carpet is still cellophaned, but the atmosphere, it's absolutely electric. When you get inside there, when I walked on there for the first time and I was looking around, I was so thrilled because I thought in a few hours, in a few days, literally every star in the world will be walking down that red carpet. So it's been an incredible few hours here. We've been reporting from what's been happening on the red carpet and we have loads more to tell you. But I can tell you that Los Angeles is an absolute buzz because it's starting to feel real now. It's about to all happen.
Okay, Deborah, don't worry. We'll be there vicariously with you right there on the red carpet. But we hear that there's some kind of undercurrents. Let us into some of the secrets inside the ceremony and, of course, the big gulf between who will win and who will not win.
What's really amazing is the security is one thing because nothing is left to chance, but the organisation of the ceremony and the performances and who presents what Oscar, it's like a military operation. Now, press cannot go into that theatre, the Dolby Theatre where it's all going to happen, where all the stars are going to congregate, where the Oscars will be given out. However, I have got a bit of a sneak peek. I can tell you that the theme this year is a metallic gold and that inside the rehearsals have been going on. So when you've got stars like Elton John and Cynthia Erivo performing, everything has to be perfect. We're talking sound checks, we're talking music, we're talking a sort of electric atmosphere. And of course, again, for the second year, we're not having a presenter. So the organisation of that ceremony has to be even more perfect. But you asked me about who is going to win. Now, that's a very contentious issue. Some of the categories are considered to be sewn up, particularly because of previous awards like the Golden Globes. So everybody thinks that Joaquin Phoenix is going to get the best Oscar for Best Actor for The Joker. That's almost a certainty here. And Judy, Renée Zellweger to play Judy. Again, she's considered to be something of a certainty. But then some of the other categories are considered to be a little bit contentious. I think that Best Picture is likely to go to 1917 because it won the BAFTAs. However, Martin Scorsese is up for a 9th directing award, which is a record in itself for The Irishman. And I think, but for the Netflix factor, he might have won something. So I think some of those categories are a little contentious. For example, Parasite is considered to be one of the best films this year, but it's more likely to get the best international film rather than the best picture. But of course, the votes have been counted, the ballots are in, the Oscars are being prepared, so the Academy knows who's going to win. Now everybody has got to wait just a few hours now before we start to find out, are our guesses right, or have the Academy voters actually gone against the grain and chosen some unusual thing, which can happen. And that's the exciting thing about the Oscars, isn't it? And we can report to you as and when that happens.
That's right, Deborah. Well, you did mention that the Oscars this year, as well as the previous year, will have no host. Now, one of my favorite actresses, Jane Fonda, yes, she is apparently one of the presenters this year, but she has been busy elsewhere today too, right? Can you bring us up to speed with what she's been up to?
I was actually this close to Jane Fonda today. She was bringing her Fire Drill Fridays to Los Angeles for the first time. She'd had 14 weeks in Washington, and of course we've reported constantly here on Arise about how she was arrested. She was flying the flag for the environmental crisis and wanting people to take action. Today she was doing that outside on the steps of City Hall in Los Angeles, and it was thrilling to be there, to see her in action. She wore her famous red coat, her famous red hat, and she was incredible. You know, she's 82 years old, but at one point she led a march down the streets of Los Angeles with a huge crowd because she's determined to get a message across. But it wasn't just Jane Fonda. Joaquin Phoenix was there. He didn't give a speech, but he was there supporting her. Of course, as you know, he'd been in Washington and he'd actually been arrested in January supporting her, and he was determined to be by her side. But the crowd was full of famous faces. You know, I bumped into Mara Rooney and she didn't want to talk. She was very low key, and there were just lots of them. At one point, Jane Fonda brought her famous friends onto the stage so everyone could get a picture. But what was also fascinating was there were lots of different environmental groups, and Jane Fonda is championing their cause. You know, she will be on the Oscars stage, but she is determined, while the spotlight is on her this week, the whole media circus is in town, she's using it to get her message across. And you know what's incredible? To see her and to hear her passion. Of course, she has a track record of being, you know, an activist. She protested against Vietnam. But, you know, she's now dedicated the rest of her life to fighting the environmental cause. And she was incredible to see this close up in action.
And it's not just Jane Fonda who, will be using the opportunity of that platform, the Oscars platform, to make political speeches and to drive what they're passionate about. Remember Meryl Streep's speech in the 2017 Oscars? Do you think, some of the winners will be using the opportunity to make such passionate speeches? Should we expect that?
You know, I think that's going to be one of the most exciting things about the Oscars this year. We've already seen Joaquin Phoenix use his acceptance speech of many awards this award season, and I think he's going to take the same opportunity. I think today we were expecting him to speak, but I think he's almost keeping his powder dry because he wants to make sure that his message, when he takes that golden statue, as many people think he will, about the environment and about other issues. You know, we've talked a lot about diversity here, and that was something he's already referenced, but I don't think he'll be the only one. I think other people have a lot to say about the environment, about the crisis that we've been reporting on a rise in places like Australia and elsewhere, but I think we'll also hear more about the Me Too era and the diversity. And of course, they have a very limited amount of time to give their speeches, but they know that the world is watching. We're looking at billions of people tuning in to see the Oscars. So it's a moment where they know they have the spotlight. People can't stop them speaking, at least for a short period of time. So I think they'll want to get their message across. And although it's a thrill for most people, obviously, to win an Oscar, it's also an opportunity for people like Joaquin to say to the world, yes, this is important, but this is more important. Environmental change, political change, other causes that are dear to their heart. And as you say, we've seen that before, and it's almost the joy of the Oscars to see their passion spilling out and sharing it with the world.
So exciting, Deborah. So much excitement in the air. I cannot wait. I mean, I just can't wait for the Oscar. What can we expect in the next 48 hours?
Wow, you know, we're not getting much sleep here. Not that I'm complaining, because it is the most exciting thing. And parties are the sort of the key thing. Of course, from a work perspective, one attends the parties to meet people. And that is the case for a lot of the actors as well. So, for example, this evening's party was a cocktail party for women in film. And a lot of famous faces were there because it's not just an opportunity to meet fellow nominees. It's an opportunity to discuss the important issues. And we talked about Jane Fonda earlier. And of course, a lot of parties are raising money for charities. For example, Elton John's always raises money each year. But in terms of what's coming up for the next 48 hours, let me paint you a picture. First of all, we've got the stuff on the red carpet. It's a magical moment when, you know, they actually take the cellophane off that red carpet and then they start to clean it. You know, it takes 900 man hours to actually put down the red carpet. It costs about $25,000 to actually buy the carpet. But it's like Halloween. hallowed ground, and it's treated as though it's the most important patch of earth in the world. There are lots of very strict rules about what you can and can't do on the red carpet. Not, of course, we would ever break them. But then the preparations on the red carpet are all about also getting the press there, getting the coverage there, because when the stars walk up that red carpet, people will be watching. You know, it can take between $2 and $10 million to get a star ready to walk that red carpet. When you think about the jewels and the dresses, of course, this is mainly for the women, it can cost a fortune. But of course, we're also looking at the final touches of the ceremony, making sure there are no glitches. You know, I remember vividly when La La Land thought it had won the Oscar, and of course it was Moonlight. That was a major setback for the Oscars, and I think the Academy are absolutely determined to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again. So that's why every detail is being checked, everything is being rehearsed, everything is being prepared for. And of course the stars themselves now, they're on the final straight for getting ready. They can have spent about a month eating the right food, having facials, having treatments. So their moment will come. So whether they win or not, they know that the world is watching them. And of course, we'll be watching them here at Rise, and we'll be bringing you all the details of what happens on that red carpet and inside the Dolby Theatre where all the awards will take place.
$1,000 worth of goodie bags, you know, for some of the winners. But Deborah, before we wrap this, talk to us about some of the controversial issues about, you know, two white Oscars, and Oscars that's not, inclusive enough, it's not diverse enough, and all of that. Talk to us about that and what you make of it.
You know, I almost feel sad saying this, really, but diversity has been the key thing this year. A few years ago when we had the hashtag not so white, everybody thought things would change, but this year Cynthia Erivo is the only black nominee, and she's given interviews about how sad she is that is the case. So it's a kind of bittersweet experience. You know, she's only the third person to have 2 nominations in acting and singing categories, but because of the fact that she's the only black person nominated, she feels very mixed about this. And of course, when we look at diversity, also the Latinos have been shut out. We talked previously about J-Lo not getting a nomination for Hustlers, which people are very surprised about. But when you look at the women, it's interesting that this year we have seen a rise in the number of women nominated, but we're still seeing key areas where they haven't been. A lot of people are saying that Greta Gerwig should have had a nomination for Best Director for Little Women, because she's got 6 other nominations. So there's a sort of sense of disappointment. But certainly when it comes to women and the Oscars, it's quite a tricky subject. And diversity doesn't seem to be something the Academy are approaching and really tackling. And that has become something of a key, because people are looking at the nominations, and instead of just discussing the quality or, you know, which is a better film, there's a sense of, well, you know, what about all the other people that are making great films, having great performances? Surely they deserve recognition too.